Okay, it is now 4:02 p.m. on February 15th. I will call the February meeting of the Wolfeboro Police Commission to order at this time and ask everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For the benefit of those watching this at home, to my immediate right, the camera's left, Commissioner Ron Goodgame. I am Chairman Steve Wood. On the phone in sunny Florida, we have Commissioner Joe Balboni. To my immediate left, Chief Dean Rondo, and to his immediate left, Captain Mark Libby. And at this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 18th regular meeting of the Police Commission. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Goodgame to accept. Seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes at all? You all set?
Yep.
Okay. Seeing there is no discussion, I will take a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes of January 18th, 2018, say aye.
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 Aye. Balboni, aye.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Chief, if you'll proceed with the activity reports.
Approve these other minutes.
When we go to non-public, yes. Okay. If you'd like to proceed with the...
I would, thank you. So the first slide in your slide deck is going to be the incident cases year-to-date 2018. So for the month of January, you'll see there was a decrease of 13.636. Again, 13.636% decrease from December 2017. So that's good news. So the number of incidents was 39. But 57 total offenses. So remember, we have offenses, and then we have incidents. Incident is the event, and then the offenses are the number of crimes that have occurred within that event. So 57 offenses. Arrests, we saw a decrease in January. We were down 3.263%. Again, down 3.263%, so that's good. And then you've got the background arrest log for your edification if you wanted to drill down deeper into any of that. For traffic stops year to date, we saw an increase of 32.28% for a total of 168 traffic stops in the month of January. Of that, 7 tickets were given out at the 4.2% chance of getting a ticket. So your odds of getting a warning are actually pretty good, about 96% or so. The backup data, gentlemen, will show you where those stops occurred and what they were for. For collisions year to date, you saw a decrease. We were down in the month of January 23.07%, which is really good. So a total of 10 traffic crashes. And I just want to take a moment and say that, first of all, that's a really good number. A better number would be 0, but that's a really good number. I remember when I first came here 22 years ago, it would not be uncommon for an officer to respond to 4 or 5 traffic crashes in a given shift. Not a month, a week, a given shift. Realizing that we had 3 shifts a night, sometimes 4. So when I first started here, the traffic accidents were measured in the triple digits. And now to be getting down to double digits, the low double digits, or even single digits, which we've seen a few times in 2016 and a couple of times in 2017, that's really tremendous. And it's attributed to the hard work of the patrol officers getting out there, enforcing the traffic regulations, driving those traffic crashes down to 0, attempting to drive them down to 0, which is what we're trying to do. But informing the public and educating the public of the laws and so forth. And so that's really good enforcement action. So not every stop has to end in a ticket okay? And it's meant to be educational as opposed to punitive. And here you're seeing the end result, and I think that's great. That's that's a good number. 10 is a good number. It's manageable. It's unfortunate that they occurred, but it's manageable, as opposed to say 100. That's definitely way too many. And I remember there were days when I was a younger patrolman 22 years ago, literally not being able to get off of South Main Street because of traffic crashes. Just go from traffic crash to traffic crash to
Usually
traffic
during
crash.
a storm event of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. So,
I've noticed in the last 2 storms that we've had here, which have actually involved when buses and students are leaving the school and so forth, that we've not had anything. So people apparently are being more mindful of the conditions of how they're driving, where they're driving.
and I think that's a lot of really, really hard work, but I want to let you know too, look how long it's taken. It's taken almost 20 years to really, of constant work to drive those numbers down. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of men and women out there that have worked for our agency over the years that get a lot of credit for that. The backup data of all what I call the usual suspects in terms of where those crashes occurred is provided for you, and not to keep our public in interest. It's South Main Street. The big winners are South Main Street and Center Street, so essentially Route 28. So there's no mystery there, right? You've got a brand new slide now for the beginning of the year in terms of personnel analysis. Here's your personnel analysis report, shows where the men are, and so this is this is a beginning of a brand new year, but you'll see where the men are busy and the officers are busy, right? And you've got the school resource officers report, so it's a little this is a little short. Obviously, we have the detective filling in up there because of an injury. But if you have any questions on this, I will address it from either one of you. Okay.
We're all set with that?
You've got the activity for the month of January. The detective is doing a great job. There's 75% of his cases have been closed this month. 50% of those have resulted in an arrest, and so year to date so far, closed is 75%. So he's doing a very good job. So you've got his chart behind there, but if you want to drill down on anything specific. And with that, and with your permission, I'll move into the chief's items.
Please.
So just so you know, Mr. Chairman, I do have 2 items for non-public under personnel. The command and staff conducted 2 internal FY17 budget reviews in the month of January, and no budget reviews were conducted for the FY18 budget, as the FY18 budget had yet to be posted. So the purpose of the FY17 was just to see where we were at after all the bills had cleared. And as you know, and as I reported last month, we ended in the black and not the red. And I think we executed the budget well.
Very well.
So I was very happy with the way things turned out. We had a command and staff meeting that we conducted on 31 January, and it was well attended, and everybody participated meaningfully, which is always good. We attended the 4 January budget hearing at Town Hall. The process went smoothly, as did the 6 February town deliberative session. I think there's an article in the paper this week about that. And the town's voting is scheduled for 13 March, starting at 7 in the morning, and runs from 7 until 1900. So please get out there and vote and exercise your constitutional rights. The captain and I met with our architects relative to the public safety building. We provided additional input and responded to questions while other members of the department took them on a walkthrough through the PD, and the process is moving along quite smoothly and actually fast. So more to follow on that. I will keep the commission appraised, but I think we're off to a pretty good start. The captain and I continue to be regulars at the men's breakfast meetings each month. On the 9th, I spoke to NPR That's New Hampshire Public Radio, along with some other chiefs of police on the opioid epidemic. So they, Ms. Sutherland is a reporter for New Hampshire NPR. She's doing Paige Sutherland is doing a special on the opioid epidemic and how the towns north of north of Concord are dealing with it. So it was a good discussion. So we're looking forward to that coming out here soon. The captain, myself, and Officer Mike Fenton made an appearance on our Coffee and Connections with the Chief program, and that was well. In fact, it was fortuitous that we were there because somebody had an episode there at the location, and we had a call for fire rescue.
Yep, medical staff.
Yeah, it was a medical issue. So, moving on to the prosecutor's report, this month 18 defendants responded to 22 charges. Of those 22 charges, 16 were found guilty or pled guilty. 3 charges were placed on file pending good behavior for 6 months or more with diversion and education components to their sentence, and 3 will now prost. Conviction rate this month dropped slightly to 86.37%. With approximately $6,086 in fines, penalties, and restitutions meted out. So again, it shows you how busy the prosecutor is and his level of work. And what affects that rate is when we know prost 3, which means withdraw. We just simply pull those back. That ends up driving that down a little bit. Still, 86%. Is a great, that's a great conviction rate. The department is continuing its enhanced speed enforcement operations in the following areas: North Line Road, Beach Pond Road, with a focus on the area between Pine Hill Road and North Line Road, Center Street, North Main Street, and 109 East. This is based on data collected and analyzed by our radar trailer and citizen complaints of speeders in the areas. We will continue our efforts in these areas until we are sure that speeds have come down. If you travel these roads, please be mindful of the speed limits. More so now that the weather has turned colder and snow and ice will invariably be following. Please be safe. Training for the month of January, the executive officer attended the executive development series, and it was on liability and public records, so I'm sure that was a riveting block of instruction, but and I say that with tongue-in-cheek, but oh so important. The following officers attended START training, and that stands for Sexual Assault Response Training. It was conducted at the County Attorney's Office by the County Attorney's personnel. And in attendance was Captain Livy, Sergeant Usherbo, Sergeant Moore, Sergeant Maloney, Senior Patrolman Strzok, Senior Patrolman Sparrow, Detective Emerson, Officer Swift, Officer La Rochelle, and Officer Fenton. And Officer Swift also attended crime scene first responder training, and that was done at the Police Academy. This past month, there was no dispatch training. Matters of interest and community outreach, the captain and I spoke on Wolfeboro Community TV this past month. Once again, the captain and I met with our town manager and staff and our architects, and they've begun their needs assessment in earnest, and we stand ready to assist them in their project. As you know, the completion date for the first step in this process is 30 June 2018. As is the needs assessment of the existing building and future needs required for both the fire and police department. Stay tuned for more updates on this all-too-important project. The completion date, according to the town master plan, for a new public safety building is 2022. So that, though it may seem far out, it's literally right around the corner. The captain and I continue to be regulars at the men's breakfast meetings each month. Both the captain and I continue to be a presence at the boss meetings. I continue to serve on both the Governor's Committee for the Humane and Ethical Treatment of Animals and serve on Senator Bradley's legislative committee seeking to strengthen the state's animal cruelty laws. On 6 February, the town manager and I were invited by Senator Bradley to testify in front of Senator Abard's committee relative to Senate Bill 569 FN. And this was an effort to close the many loopholes and tighten the state's animal cruelty laws. The bipartisan legislation is a very good bill and will work to ensure large-scale animal cruelty cases become a thing of the past. I would encourage all those watching this meeting to contact your New Hampshire senators and representatives to tell them that you support this bill and would like them to vote in favor of it. And while I'm on that, I just want to mention that, you know, there was a number of of issues last year relative to animal cruelty in this state. And so, you know, obviously this is not, what happened here in Wolfeboro is not an anomaly. And I think it's important to tighten up these laws, you know, so we don't have these costly investigations. And it's just my personal stance on it, but I think it's very important. And lastly, please be our guest on Coffee and Connections with the Chief. This Wolfeboro TV community show entails the captain and I and other members of our department meeting and speaking with various groups or individuals on Wolfeboro Community TV at local area venues and discussing community topics of interest. If you would like to be on the show or have us come down to your group or area to talk, simply contact Peter or Tim at Wolfeboro Community TV and be part of the Coffee and Connections program with the chief. And today, the captain and I, interestingly enough, were down there, and we were joined by a number of Brewster Academy students and staff, and it was good, and they asked a lot of very good, insightful questions, it was a great discussion, so I welcome them.
Speaking of Brewster, Chief, do we foresee in the near future a request from them perhaps about an officer on the campus? Are they providing their own security, or what are they?
Well,
It comes to mind
I
again
think,
because, I mean, we have one at the high school, middle school complex, but in light of the recent events and what's continuing to happen around the country, I was wondering if they're gonna be looking at that.
that is something that is, has come up in discussions in the past, being a betting man, I would say it's inevitable. I think in the next, 3 to 5 years, the paradigm is really going to shift and change, and it's going to become a requirement. Although we haven't been formally approached, I think that's probably, especially in light of the terrible incident that just happened in Florida, I think it's going to happen. I mean, I think it's at some point, you can't keep doing business as usual. You're going to have police on campus at no matter what school, whether it's a private school or a public school. It's going to become a reality, and I guess that's where I'm going to go. I can't solve, and people oftentimes ask me, hey, Chief, and in fact, a gentleman today at the men's breakfast that we attended, wanted to talk about this, and this, I can't change. This whole thing has to change at the national level, and I don't even know where to begin. So, but what we can do is be proactive, and we can be aware of alerts. And I think what the president said this morning, I didn't see what exactly he was putting out, but it was briefed to me by one of my staff that the president made a comment that you've got to know the community, and I agree with that. I think that's oh so important, and the warning signs to these things usually, not always, but they're put out there. There are warning signs, whether it's a Facebook posting or whether it's some comments to the neighbors, or there's a change of personality. These things manifest themselves, and they should be picked up. And Michelle, who was on Coffee and Connections with the Chief this morning, I think she hit the nail right on the head. She's, to those listening, she's one of our most experienced dispatchers and a real value added member of the police department. We have to care about our community and our neighbors, and I agree with that 100%. That's why we're all in this business, right? So, but getting on, to answer your question, I think relative to Brewster Academy, I think it's going to happen. I just know, will it happen next year? Probably not, but will it happen 2 or 3 years down the road? Probably.
We've had, I know there's been active shooter training done at the high school by the department, and I know in my years with the fire department, we did pre-planned training with both the high school complex at the time, middle school complex, and at Brewster as well, with all their buildings. But has there been any active shooter training? Are they doing anything on site? Because they are part of our community, obviously, and
So
I hope that they're receiving the same benefit, if you will,
So all right, so that's a great question, and first of all, we have a great relationship with Brewster Academy, and in fact, I spoke to one of their representatives today, and we spoke to, the captain has been in contact with the administration at Kingswood. I was in contact with the administration of Brewster right after this event, so I want all of our people to know that. Brewster has done an awful lot of work in the last few years about, strengthening their what I call their physical security posture relative to events with that. We have been involved in that. The fire department has been involved in that. And we continue to partner with Brewster Academy and work with them when and where we can. And as you know, we do a lot of active shooter training at Kingswood. And it happens, and so just so you know, it happens usually late at night when the school is unoccupied. We have access to it, and it's coordinated, and it's done at a time when the students are off campus. And so it's very low key, but we're training constantly. In fact, the captain and I had strategy session this morning based off of the events that happened in Florida and relative to response. So we're constantly looking at how we prepare for these type of scenarios. Now look, when I was in the Army and when we were planning for the missions that we would do, we would look to try to do and plan for contingencies. But I will tell you that you can't plan for every single contingency. It's impossible. You can try, but it will be an exercise in futility. You can plan for 2 or 3, and that's probably about the extent of it. And lastly, I will tell you that no plan ever survives first contact. So being an Army officer, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you make your own luck, but no plan ever survives first contact. So unfortunately, a lot of these things essentially have to be dealt with as they unfold. I'm very confident in our abilities. We have a very talented police department, and we have a lot of skill sets. I'm very proud of the men and women who work for our agency. And they work really, really hard at making sure that they're the best at what they do. And I think we're in good shape. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. We will continue, we will examine the situation that happened. We will look to see I'm talking about law enforcement now, and this will come out through the various chiefs of association meetings, and trust me, there will be very detailed after-action reports that will come out once the dust settles on all this, and we will look to see where the failures were. I'm learning now that there were a lot of warning signs that went unheeded. I'm not trying to cast blame at anybody.
No, and that was going to be something that I was going to allude to in this process, is that one of the more common statements that I was hearing about the event in Florida was that there were people that had identified this individual as a potential problem. Whether or not those warnings fell on deaf ears, or they didn't feel that there was a significant enough threat level to act on anything or to investigate anything. I'm not like you, I'm not going to judge. I wasn't there. That's an entirely different community down there. But in keeping with our community policing belief, the importance of community, the necessity of community involvement, I think we as a community, and when I say community, I'm not just talking about Wolfeboro, because we have a multi-town school district.
Right.
We all have to be mindful of our surroundings. We all have to be totally aware of who's around us, what's around us, and people have to come forward. A lot of times people have, in the past, it was always, well, I'm just going to turn and look the other way. It's not my problem. Well, now the problems are different. Now they're far more volatile. Now they have far worse consequences. I think everybody, the police department cannot, in itself, we could never hire enough police, well, we probably could, but we'd cripple the town financially to make that school complex
He was just kidding about that, folks.
as safe as it could be. but that's not a reality. The
That's
reality
not
is
cost-effective, right.
that we have to work, you have to work with,
Within the budget constraints.
well, within the budget constraints, but within that community itself, there has to be a lot of, which is why I'm happy to hear that we're working closely with Brewster. I know we work closely with the Governor Wentworth School District. There has to be that exchange of information. There has to be those doors open both ways. You know, people are bringing us information, people are giving the school information that becomes available. You know, kids see and hear everything.
They do.
My days in police work as a police officer, they were my greatest resource. Because, and you know this too, you talk to kids in a neighborhood, did you see this? Do you know who did this? They can solve more crimes just by what they witness and what they hear, and they don't forget.
No.
And I think that's going to have to become more of an important part of the culture in the school district, especially as these kids have to be educated to come forward, to speak freely, and to keep an eye open, and, you know.
The other thing too is Pete Llewellyn, just so you know, who's our school resource officer, folks, senior patrolman Llewellyn is a tremendous resource. He's a guy that knows the laws cold. He's a great father figure, mentor, role model. Up there at Kingswood, he coaches a number of teams up there. He's on the Vista program with you. And he, too, has been over to Brewster Academy a number of times to assist them with various issues and keeps an open line of communication with Brewster, even though they don't have an SRO per se. I like to say that they have one on call through Officer Llewellyn, and sometimes that creates some extra stress with Officer Llewellyn, because he's not only our SRO, but he's also dual-hatted as our juvenile prosecutor. And now he's the you know, if you will, the on-call SRO for Brewster. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on and happening behind the scenes. But getting back to your comment, I think invariably what's going to happen, and not just specifically with Brewster, because obviously they have their own board of trustees and they have to make, I can't make decisions for them, they have to make their own. But I think with all the schools, with all the high schools and private schools, I think you're going to see some form of either private armed contracted security, or you're going to see SRO type relationships with the municipal police. And I think it's going to be a reality within 5 years. It's going to be standard operating procedure, and because I think something just absolutely has to give. I don't see rights being taken away from citizens, but I see the government now, or society, having to do things that it didn't have to do before, and you know, protecting our schools. I mean, it's the government's first job, first responsibility is protection of its citizens.
It's a different world today.
It is definitely a different world. It's a different world than 22 years ago when I came into law enforcement. You're absolutely right, Commissioner. And but I think that's what's going to happen. I think you'll see it as standard, and I think insurance companies will probably make it mandatory. And I think that's what's going to drive the train, is the insurance. That's just my personal opinion. I could be dead wrong. Somebody might come back in 5 years and poke me in the eye and say you were wrong. But I think it's going that way. I would certainly advocate for it. If personnel from Brewster Academy, the administrators, the ones that were authorized to speak, said, "Hey, Chief, can you help us? We want to partner with you in an SRO," I would jump at that opportunity and say, absolutely. Let's go through the process. I'm here for the long haul. Let's discuss this and work it through. Let's apply for whatever government grants we can get our hands on, and let's move forward, because protection of our children, they're our future. The students in high school are our future, right? These are the ones that are going to be taking care of us when we retire. They're the ones that are going to turn over responsibility to government and to running the railroad and so forth and so on. And we want to make sure we're doing right by them. And so I probably told you how to build a watch. I wasn't trying to do that, but
No, that's fine.
And I want to just one last thing. You had mentioned community policing and the concepts of community policing. I'm supportive of that. I'm a proactive guy. Crime prevention, physical security are two big areas that I think are very important. We will always continue to, as long as I'm chief of police, we will continue to work with the community to solve problems. And if that means that somebody's posting things on Facebook that might be a little disturbing, or, you know, or call, you know, we'll investigate. And we can always do a cold knock and talk, and say, hey, is everything okay? Are there any concerns in here? And I think sometimes that's all you need to do, and to bring it down a notch or two. And I loved what you said about situationally aware. We are all thy brother's keeper. And you talked about community, and I agree with you. The Wolfeboro community and the greater Wolfeboro community, they're all part of our area of interest and area of influence. And we want to make sure that we're pulling everybody in that we can. And so in terms of community policing, if you see something, even if it's wrong, it's okay, call us. If it's, you know, if you're wrong, okay, it's a good intent. It's not a problem. It's what we do. It is exactly what we do. This, for the Wolfeboro Police Department, it's not always Silence of the Lambs. It's stolen bike reports and, officer, can you get my cat out of a tree? We love those calls. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we do. That's why we're here. Yeah, and yes, it is going down and covering a fender bender at Hunter's IGA, or somebody locked their keys out of their car at the high school, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. And if you need us to check on a neighbor, or you're concerned, call us, because yes, we will go down and we will help you. If you're going home late at night and you want an escort out to your car because you're not feeling safe, call us. That's what we do. We're happy to do it, and we're happy to do it, and that's the important thing. Yes, sir.
Do they have civics courses anymore at Kingswood?
Civics, you know, that's a great question. I don't believe so.
Do they have anything similar to it?
Social studies. I think civics was really replaced with social studies back in, I want to say, maybe 1975, 76.
Do you think it would be worthwhile or possible for Officer Llewellyn to get together with, say, the principal and have at one of these social studies classes a presentation by him to the students in terms of, you see something, say something?
I think that's a fantastic idea.
Kind of like the DARE program was, but more contemporary?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all very possible. And, you know, we do, just so you know, we do things like Law Day, where we're into some of the other schools, like the grade school and the middle school, and we talk about things like that. And we do, and we talk about, you know, stranger danger to the children, and we do bike safety and bike checks for the kids at springtime. We do all that stuff, and we always have and we always will. But I think that's a fantastic idea at the high school. Situational awareness is very important, and you know, people say, well, what does that really mean, Chief? And that means being aware of your surroundings, you know, paying attention. I used to give a great block of instruction to the nurses over at the VNA about situational awareness, and be mindful of where you're going and how you're getting there and who's behind you, and giving them some of the techniques that I used back in the day to pick up surveillance, see if I was being followed. All of these things are, you know, fit into the art of situational awareness. And but I think situational awareness is very important, and you know, we're all aware of what's going on around us, but more importantly, what's going on in the community, and paying attention to Facebook postings on social media, or Twitter postings, and so forth and so on. That's all very critical. And if somebody flagged that and said, hey, I'm just going to make a phone call to the police or to the school or to somebody, get that in. I will tell you that we get a lot of information. The captain and I, we have a lot of direct lines of communication, especially to the schools, and we field a lot of calls from the schools, and they're using us as a resource, which is exactly what I want. And we're able to help them with sometimes some difficult situations, and we do it discreetly. and people oftentimes have called us and said, is there something you can do, here's the situation, yeah, absolutely, we'll help anybody out.
And nobody's ever got in trouble for good intent call if it didn't pan
No,
out.
never,
No.
never, you know, a good intent call is just that, if it doesn't pan out, if it's something innocuous or seemingly insignificant, that's great, and you know what, I would love those calls, because I'll tell you from my time as an intelligence officer, all those years in the Army, it's usually that one piece of information that you're missing that puts the whole puzzle together. And when you find that person that had it, and say, why didn't you call? Why didn't you tell us?
It was important.
Oh, I didn't think it was important. I didn't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be a bother. Yeah, it's not a bother, believe me. And
Well, and
yeah.
so often, the person who has the intel that you want doesn't know you want it.
They don't.
So they don't know who to call.
They don't, and it's not
They don't know who
intel,
to get in
it's
touch with.
information.
They don't know who to get in touch with.
Right, well, oftentimes they do, but they don't want to be a bother, they don't want to be a concern. But it's information, it's not intel. The difference between intelligence and information is raw, unanalyzed data. Intelligence is analyzed data, a final product. That's the difference.
So if I know that someone's going to shoot you tomorrow, is that intel or? is
No,
that,
that's information.
Information.
That's
Good
information.
to have.
Yeah, it's good information to
The
have.
day
Pretty
before.
refined.
Do you, now, are you trying to tell me something, Commissioner?
Yeah, I am, because I think so often what we do is we get into the semantics and the nuances of, you know, words and stuff like that. I think that what's important is big message to high
Right.
school students as opposed to little messages.
Right.
And
I agree.
They've got to feel that there's some equity in it. Why do I want to rat on my friend?
Yeah, well, because your friend is gonna grab a high-powered rifle and is gonna kill 18 people, that's why. And we don't want, that's a bad thing, and the whole good, bad thing, that's a bad thing, and hopefully they understand that, but I know what you're getting at.
And here's the guy or the woman that you want to get in touch with that information.
Just call me a lady.
Yeah, I got it.
You know
I
what
got
I'm
it, I'm tracking with you 100%.
Not get in touch with the police, but get in touch with Officer Llewellyn, get in touch with the principal, get in touch with.
Anybody.
Yeah, anyone.
Identify.
And that's a great
Identify.
point, that's a great point. It doesn't have to be me, but it could be somebody you trust and say, gee, you know, I don't know if this really means anything, but let me tell you what I heard in the cafeteria, or what I heard, or what I read, or what I heard on the street corner down at the coffee shop, or whatever the case may be, and get it to somebody you trust, and gee, I really don't know what to do with it. And trust me, we have fielded information from other organizations within the town, in fact, I'm thinking of a situation that occurred last year, and I was able to take that information, and this person, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, don't worry about it, what's the information? They gave it to me, I go, yeah, that's troubling, let me call my buddies in the FBI. And no muss, no fuss, I'll keep your name out of it, you know, it's coming from me, and I'll make an official report to the
Let them
FBI.
know I can talk.
And, yes, and it was worth the
Yep.
effort. It's
Absolutely.
always worth the effort. And there is, you know, if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. It's okay, but it's good intent. It's a good intent. There's not malice. There's no malice intended here. And, but, you know, Commissioner, I just want to say, you're right to bring up, why should I rat on my buddy, right? Why should I rat on my friend? And we hear that a lot. And I said, because you know, your friend is gonna be dealing drugs, and those drugs are gonna kill somebody, that's why. You want that death on your conscience. Do you want 10 years from now, when you're a little bit more mature, do you want this whole episode keeping you up at night because you did nothing and somebody perished as a result of your misguided sense of loyalty?
So you think that it's possible during social studies or some other
Absolutely.
scheduled class that
Absolutely.
somebody designated from the department, probably Llewellyn,
Absolutely.
could give
I think it's a
such
fantastic idea, and
presentation to
we'll
each
get on
class.
that. The captain will make sure it happens.
I think it's actually an ideal time, unfortunately, because of the situation that unfolded, but it's, people now are thinking, and it's a good time
Right.
to jump on it and
Right.
and make it happen.
Anything and everything we can do to keep people safe is a good thing. I'm all about public safety. I'm all about keeping people safe. As well, you know, I'm all about, hey, keep your eye on the weather. I think the weather is an area where we can really, you know, improve on, you know.
Every 10 days.
You know, every 10 days, you're gonna get a storm. It's like clockwork. This is the Northeast, right? It's not, you know, it's not like it's San Diego, right? Where nothing ever changes.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we don't have Alyssa here. Joe, do you have anything at all that you wanted to ask,
No,
discuss?
I think that's a great idea what Ron just said. About,
I agree.
going to the
It is a great idea.
And the right word is, you know, speak up.
And the other thing is too, you know, we'll take that one step further and we'll get in touch with Brewster Academy and offer the same services to Brewster Academy as well. And get that information out there and you know, we'll drive on with that and we'll keep you gentlemen informed. Fantastic idea, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay. Ron, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. And then at this point, I'm going to close the public session of the February 15th Wolfeboro Police Commission meeting and take a motion to entertain into non-public session under RSA:91-A, 3, both A and B. Personnel, we have 2 items to discuss. I will poll the commission to go into non-public session. Commissioner Goodgame?
Yes.
Commissioner Balboni?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wood is a yes. We now stand adjourned and before beginning non-public session.